and we're diving in. Belvin, you want to talk about Toast?
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh. So you're going to lie to the listeners. Right now, having told me a completely contradictory piece of information.
Walter, I don't know what the
it.
fuck you're talking about.
Belvin, this is bad form, even for you.
What,
son of a bitch.
What is Toast?
Chessman, you stay the fuck out of this.
No, I don't know what Toast is.
I swear to God.
You and me both, man.
The inquiring minds.
I have no idea what this toast business is.
I feel like you're putting on a voice, and I feel like that means that you do know what's going on.
Belvin is referring to a Netflix show, Toast of London, in a smash cult hit from like 2012, starring amazingly gifted actor Matt Berry, of which Belvin and I are tremendous fans. Oh my fucking
Tremendous, just absolutely tremendous fans.
Belvin has left me out to dry completely, apparently choosing instead to do some bit where he claims to not remember what the show is.
I watch American shows.
Is honestly, compared to
like
the rest of the quality on this podcast, a 6 out of 10 bit.
I really cannot get behind anything that normalizes the British. Just stop doing it.
Wait, so you're saying it's above average?
Oh, far above average. Compared to for example, any content you produce.
It's like,
are you attacking Chessman because you feel hurt that Belvin has abandoned you for the wolves of comedy?
What are you, like, psychiatrist?
It's like the whatever theory of politics, where if you swing far enough to one side, you come back around the other way. It's what it's like. That's what it's like.
We actually can't let the podcast get too good because we have a grant from the government to produce the worst content imaginable.
Yeah, it's like the farmers that get paid to grow nothing in the field.
Yeah, to grow nothing in the field. We're just using up space on the airwaves so we can jam all the pedophile frequencies that the government's using. That's why this initiative was funded.
It's an anti-5G initiative. It's true.
It's supported by 5G.
I guess we should say that this episode this is a special episode. We're doing Springtime for Hitler.
No one's ever done that before.
No one's ever done that before. We're going to crash this podcast in the ground.
No, it's a very prestigious government grant, though. I mean, sure, it's like to cover up pedophilia, but I mean, you get to. I mean, like, we share that grant with a lot of content, like every Game of Thrones podcast, for example.
Yeah, it's crazy how they're all still going on, and we all know why that is.
Every Mandalorian podcast that exists is also recipients of the grant.
Do any?
I'm sure that at least one does.
Man.
Every fucking show that has any mainstream popularity has it. There's like a million podcasts about The Sopranos.
Oh, well,
dude, there's one hosted by the actor who played Bobby Bacala.
Yeah, with Michael Imperioli, right?
Yeah, Mike Imperioli and the guy who played Christopher Moltisanti. I forget his name.
I just said.
Okay, well, that's actually interesting.
Yeah, that's the exception.
That's not just like four dudes jacking each other off about how great The Sopranos is, which it is very great, but I don't need to hear you talk about it.
Speaking of four dudes jacking each other off, hello and welcome to 30 Man Worlds. We're your hosts. My name's Belvin.
I'm Walt.
I'm Dan.
I'm Chessman.
There we go. You don't have a first name. That's correct. I'm going to roll the lore die here to see who the lad is. It is one. Chessman, it's you.
Oh, okay. Wow. That takes a load off me.
We had a lapse, but it was literally the click of the dice.
The click of the dice.
I use a virtual dice roller.
Yeah,
I'm
up to
too poor
speed
for dice. If you're keeping up with the extended lore of the show, I do live in a public library.
Well, actually, Walt is using all his D4s as caltrops to prevent people from entering the public library right now.
It's really a public service.
Exactly. It's hard as I only have one D4.
Okay, so, you know what?
Yes?
I don't know what. Tell me.
Yeah, as lore lad, you know, sometimes you have a little bit of influence to like set the scene at the beginning.
You can definitely do that, yeah.
and I've been on a little bit of a kick recently. So
If this is about anything related to minors at all,
is it about smells, perhaps?
is it about perhaps any book written by Nabokov that we do
it's
not
Nabokov,
mention on this
actually.
fucking...
Gosh, don't lure me into this. No, it's about airplanes. It's about the jet age of aviation.
Okay.
And I'll leave it at that.
Somebody's been playing Ace Combat.
It's been
So
playing
wait,
way too much Ace Combat.
did you just introduce a prompt word or a prompt vibe?
It's a prompt vibe.
Okay.
It's a prompt era.
Okay.
Constraining
so
the
the era...
setting just a little bit.
Okay. My word is curse.
My word is Porco Rosso.
No, that's not the jet age.
It's not Jets, he's right.
The best movie he ever made, though.
Come on, it is
Just
a fantastic
kidding.
movie.
It's literally the best one.
No, that's not my word. My word is glory.
Oh.
You have once again presented me with a situation where I desperately want to choose the word pirate, but I cannot.
The glorious jet curse. Dan, your problem is that you always present your prompt last, and then you're torn.
Yes, this is a recurring issue in my day-to-day lifestyle.
You need to just seize the fucking jet engine throttle.
Well, I was gonna pick a jokey prompt, but now I don't want to.
What was the jokey prompt?
The jokey prompt was hippies.
Oh, that's not a joke.
Not a joke.
That's the
Hippies
lifestyle,
are very
dude.
serious.
Hippies are serious business.
Actually, it's kind of funny.
Well, I can pick something else if you want, or we
No.
can just roll with it.
No, I think we roll with hippie.
we roll with hippies. So that is, I already forgot what yours was, Walter.
The curse. Or curse.
The curse
The glorious curse of
glory
the hippie aircraft.
and hippies. And this is somewhere in a setting that has, let's say jet fighters.
Okay.
Jet fighters.
Jet fighting.
Worlds at war, jet fighters.
Peace and love jet fighters.
It is the height of the Vietnam War.
Fighters of consciousness expansion.
Where are you going with this?
Hippies. I was trying to tie it anyway. Go on.
Well, yeah, hippies are, I mean, they're against the establishment because the establishment is, trying to put you in a box. You know, they want to take away your drugs and free love. That's all I got on hippies.
Well, and they're
I'm trying
they're against war. They're pacifistic in nature, which is contrary to jet fighting, to shooting other planes.
Right. It seems like they would be opposed pretty, like, simplistically and diametrically.
So what would make a hippie want to become a jet pilot?
The curse.
Or the glory.
Yeah, that's true. The glory of combating the curse with your airplane.
Okay.
Oh, shooting the bad vibes. This makes sense.
It's all coming together.
Is the curse is it like a werewolf? Is
I
it
don't look. I just said curse, man. We'll figure out what the curse is. That's probably the big bad of the setting, I would say.
Big bad wolf, perhaps?
Well, curse could
I
either
don't know
be
that, like,
some kind of like dark force, or it could be like a curse, like the werewolf curse, like the curse of the Midas touch. You know, just some personally focused thing. Like maybe hippies get cursed with bloodlust or whatever. I don't know. We have options.
I kind of like the idea of the curse changing the normal hippie mentality into a warlike one, but then hippies are just there as kind of like a placeholder because you don't need hippies for that to be part of the curse's effect. I don't know.
Like peace through force? Is that what you're trying to say? Or like
I don't know. I'm grasping at something that I can't really articulate, I guess.
Sort of like a reversal.
Yeah, it's just like you gotta have a trip.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like you step through the mirror and you're in the bizarro world where hippies are leading the military or something.
Mm-hmm. A cast of consciously expanded free love soldiers.
In their pursuit of the glory of a world at peace, they become cursed. Because all they can do to achieve it is inflict violence.
It is your job to help.
I do not think. Okay, I do not think that the hippies are both cursed and seeking glory. I do not think we've got glorious werewolf hippies that are fighting for peace. Does not seem. I don't know why I'm stuck on werewolf. Is that when I hear curse, I think Dracula's and I think werewolves.
I think the hippies are cursed and the air pilots are seeking glory.
Okay. So, okay.
These are just factions, though. These are factions that are furthermore rooted in 1968 America. How do we just add an element that makes this the world, that makes it...
Yeah. Obviously, there's jet technology, relatively modern sort of vibe here. We're talking about, like, cassette players, at least. Radio frequencies that you can tune into.
Yeah.
What if the curse is a radio frequency?
Like so that's a delivery mechanism, but that's not like what the curse is.
Right. The curse is bad vibes.
Well, yeah.
The curse fucks you up, and it makes it so your vibes can never get funky again.
No. We can't do funky music.
I'm just describing it. Listen.
Okay, I think we've kind of been angling this with the hippies as the protagonists. But what if it is that the hippies have been cursed, like, because they are so zealous in their pursuit of peace and free love, and it's turning them into not werewolves, but some other sort of beast, which only jet airplanes can destroy?
Well, they would have to fly then, right?
The gargoyle hippies.
It would.
No. Okay. So, there's this idea. I forget what it's called. They call it plant medicine, right? It's you can go off to another country, and because it's illegal here, of course, you can go off to I forget which country, and go on this plant medicine course where you take it's ayahuasca. It's just ayahuasca. Yeah,
sure. Go ahead.
And one of the guys that leads it, or the guy who owns it, apparently his story was that he took ayahuasca and he went on this journey that involved him traveling to the moon, which is ayahuasca. The moon is, it's very confusing. And then the moon gave him a new heart. Is it possible that these hippies went on a spiritual journey that gave them a real, it gave them something real that is cursing them?
I like what you're thinking. I like what you're putting down here. I think the curse should be related to hippies in some way, and that they would be the first ones to suffer from it. Maybe it's like a trip you go on or a drug you take that when you take it, it's a curse on humanity. When you take it, you experience the ultimate high, a high that's so great that you leave not only your mind behind, but your vestigial humanity behind, and you turn into something other, something they call it ascended. But
giant moths.
Yes. Fuck.
I don't follow.
Giant moths?
But no, what? Yeah, giant moths, dude. Think about it.
Is giant moths good?
Because what is a trip if not the ultimate cocoon?
You hate it. You're just
no one knows what's happening to you in there.
Peyote out in the desert, and the next thing you know, you're fucking Mothra, fucking up Arizona.
And if they get a hold of people, they can force them to go through this this journey and turn them into moth people as well.
Well, the drug is, let's say it's like dried up moth spittle. So the more moths there are, the more ready supply of the drug there was. Maybe we got this drug originally from like some sort of like dormant fossil, or we kind of just like found trace amounts of it, right? But then these moths start appearing and now it's flooding everywhere. Maybe it's the ring dust, or maybe it's something that they actually tangibly produce so as to leave big trails of shit behind them.
Yeah, I like the wing dust, because it's like, if they fly over like an open air community and shit like that, it's gonna be a real problem.
And they gotta get contained. Because, yeah, exactly.
Right, so you wouldn't want to fight them on the ground, because if you're on the ground and they overtake you... Why would they
fight you? Yeah, like they would just blaze you with dust.
So you actually do need jet fighters. That's essentially the only thing that could fight them would be, well, you could also fight them with like missiles or something,
or
right?
like small arms fire. But let's say they're highly adaptable beings and their minds are ascended somehow through this drug. They're smarter than humans. I think that's important because there are less of them, and they can't really, like, moths don't have like a lot to fight with apart from the bulk of their bodies. You know, they're not like predatory creatures. They have to have some sort of intellect to them, or some sort of capacity that makes it so it's threatening to fight them. Maybe they have a hidden agenda. Maybe they can communicate with each other psychically across vast distances. Maybe they can do something like that.
Yeah, well, they're all connected through the moon.
Right.
So they have the moon's intelligence, and it's sort of like gives orders. I don't think it's like a hive mind. It's more like a network.
Yeah, like psychically linked individuals.
I like that. What if not everyone who breathed the dust turned into a moth? So, like, what if, like, you breathe in the dust, and there's, like, a 1 in 12 chance? It's still a high chance. And it's still a great danger to people.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as you breathe it in, if you're, like, one of the 1 in 12, it's like a hidden agenda has been revealed to you. And you have to go about your normal life, but also be like, I'm going to enter my cocoon in like 4 days. And you know this, and it's like, and I'm going to become, and that adds like a Cold War element too, which fits in with the setting of like, well, who's actually a moth? Who's working for the moths?
Pod person.
Yeah, who are the pod people? Who's relaying information to the moths? Because you can hold off your own transformation for months at a time if the moths want you to. And they're in communication with you about their grand design.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it.
So somebody comes back from a mission where they had to bail, and they got a whiff of moth. Like a pilot comes back from a mission, they got a whiff of moth. They then have to go into quarantine, but they don't know how long.
They don't know how long because the moths are very intelligent, and it can be assumed that whatever this wing particulate is has made the person act more intelligently than they normally would.
Moon dust.
So they
call it moon dust.
Oh, that's a cool. Yeah. Moon dust. I like it. And the incubation period can vary. We don't know how long it is. And they're very adept at pretending that they had inhaled it, but nothing was the matter.
I have a question. Mm-hmm. Is this all happening on the edge of the 60s counterculture? Is this happening with the hippie movement as we know it?
It could have risen out of that counterculture because there was so much experimentation with drug use, and it also lays the groundwork for like the military-industrial complex you would need to fight these moths as well.
Right. How does glory play into this?
I would say with the ascension that comes with the moth high.
Yeah, the Mothman plan, you think that's the glory in the setting?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a moth, you believe that there is a higher consciousness that humans can be raised to, and that you're helping them out by making them join the moth flock. That's the glory.
Okay. You think there's two aspects to glory, right? Because you've got the moth people, and then you also have like these fighter pilots who are like the only people who can do anything about it, and they're getting lots of glory for fighting these
what if the
horrible creatures.
Tying into not hippies, right? What if the moths were non-violent? Or at least they don't see what they're doing as violence. They're not like killing anyone, right? They can engage jet fighters if their lives were threatened, theoretically.
Yeah, are you saying what if the moths are a pretty benevolent force? People tend to like them, actually, because they get the moth high. And maybe the jet pilots fighting against them are not lionized for that. They're not seen as heroes because they're bringing down the good vibes.
I don't know if people would lionize because they are scary looking and they're fucking weird. But when you think about what tools, the first moths were hippies, right? We could say are people who were seeking out weird transcendental drugs. And when you think about like what natural weapons a moth has at its disposal, it doesn't have very many of them.
I think this is like the sort of like Age of Aquarius. Is that the right sort of thing? It's sort of like the psychonaut's dream, right? It's like this sort of
the ascension,
all of these weird visions that you've had in this like of like alternate reality and altered states of mind, like realizes itself in this sort of like bizarre, like surreal alien force, really. So I think a lot of like the originals were hippies, but a lot of hippies are very in support of the moths.
Oh, they're very down. A lot of hippies are moth sympathizers.
Yeah. The counterculture movement didn't just disappear.
We gotta get rid of them. We gotta root them out.
Well, if you look at the spiritual community now, there's this whole thing with ascension. You know,
shut up, you goddamn hippie!
Don't talk about it.
You gotta charge your crystals in the moonlight in the moth dust.
The first hippies were mothniks, who were kind of the first generation.
What if the spiritual community?
Wingnicks.
When you say the spiritual community, do you mean like what do you mean?
I mean the subculture of people who believe in chakras, don't trust the government.
Right.
Yeah,
normal, sensible people.
Reiki people, anti-vaxxers,
crystal healing.
A lot of people who like dip into spiritual practices and for whatever reasons try to join together in this culture. And the people who talk about ascension a lot are pretty out there, man. They're pretty wigged out. But there's this collective belief that has evolved that coming soon. I mean, this is related to like the 2012 stuff too. I mean, just like the deadline's always around the corner, right? That we will ascend into a higher form, and that the world will either become a better place or the souls will leave it.
Right. Because the moths have human people who are infected with wing dust, and they can stay human for a while before they're putting off their ascension. They see it for the common good, and so they're spreading propaganda and shit.
Well, if we get mothed and we ascend, we won't go to war anymore. We won't invade Vietnam or Korea or anywhere else.
You can't have moth Vietnam. It'd be absurd.
The bomb won't go off if we're all mothed.
If we have tiny hands,
the bomb won't go off
them nukes?
If we're all mothed. The bomb won't go off.
If the Reds get mothed too, then we won't have to fight. It won't matter. There's no communism or capitalism to moths.
Oh,
just vibing.
That's a good point with the Reds getting mothed. I bet the government would try to like make the moths go for other governments first.
Well, and I had a thought about that too, because you know how like during this era, and especially with the development of like hallucinogenic drugs, the FBI tested shit on Americans all the time undercover.
Yeah.
What if that was going on, and because of it, the FBI is now compromised?
Hell yeah.
By my moths.
One of the intelligence agencies is, to be certain.
I assume domestic because it started in the U.S., but it could be CIA too.
I mean, we don't have to root this in the real world. It could be an analog that's just set in kind of a similar aesthetic and vibe. I think that makes it kind of like more compelling because the last one we did was in the real world too.
Right. This would be sort of a strange version of reality. Sort of like a strange real
Twilight Zone.
We don't get the sponsorship money if we don't reference Ace Combat at least 4 times in the episode.
All right, listeners, we've just edited out a 25-minute portion of talking about Ace Combat. But
no, yeah, I think that makes sense. It can be an analog setting, just anything on the precipice of like a world war, like in an era where there's like espionage and this fear of the end of the world because of weapons of mass destruction.
So these I mean, I'm trying to like imagine like actually fighting these things, and it actually doesn't seem really very difficult.
Oh hell yeah,
fight
it
them
is,
at
because
all.
they're super intelligent. They can access your mind even if you're not a moth, so they know kind of what moves you're going to take, right?
Okay.
They can make you see shit that's not there. You know, if they're in close enough proximity to you, they're highly psychically potent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So fighting them is actually like flying into a web of illusions and deceptions.
Huh. So you come out, you think you're flying level, but you're actually heading
right.
Like,
you think you see blips on your radar screen, but you actually don't. Shit like that.
Oh yeah, they trick you into flying straight up or down.
Yeah,
instead
you can't
of
trust your own mind.
So they start. So like initially, like all these pilots are like
Lobotomized, dude.
Oh God. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
That's initially all the pilots probably die, and then there's a wave of like lobotomized pilots that are just like brain slaves, I guess.
They found a way to make they found a way to make pilots inhuman.
Well, so I
pure
think
glory seekers.
I think the third wave though is a wave of like the Jedi program of instead of going the way of like trying to separate them from that is to try to get them to be stronger in that and like to be able to control.
Oh shit! So we're giving them moth gas, and we determine that they're not faking it. They actually are one of the 89% of the population that's resistant to it. And then we're like, now we're going to suffuse you in moth gas.
Well, maybe there's a percentage of the population that's even more resistant to it. That's has an opposite reaction, or
right. Or I like to think if you're exposed to it enough, you can kind of become hardened to its seemingly reality-altering properties, right?
What if actually, if you manage to kill a moth, you become psychically more powerful?
What if when you kill a moth, its consciousness splits into shards that fly everywhere, like shrapnel, and some of these can get lodged in your head or in your craft and imbue your craft with some degree of sentience as well.
Huh.
Yeah, and because you never know what you're going to get from that, right? Like you'll probably get some immunity to the effect.
Well, your whole squad can benefit if it's widespread.
You might also just get hallucinations forever. Like from now on, all water just feels boiling hot to you forever for some reason. You have a strange compulsion to touch bright things.
I like the idea too of like this elite pilot corps having to like meditate constantly as part of their exercises. I think that's cool.
No, yeah, I like that. And then you have the other play of like different interests within the government of like jockeying basically for control of the pilot program. And like you have compromised intelligence agencies and people representing those that have been mothed, or some people that are just self-interested. And there's this whole backdrop of like scheming over who has the pilots and who can tell them what to do.
Right, because they could only exist in like one country, but they're lent out as like an international resource.
Like the UN has like very loose control over the pilots or some shit like that.
Right, or they can send them out to humanitarian like disaster areas because let's say that the cities have giant superstructures built over them to prevent moth dust or moon dust from accumulate.
Probably
to prevent
some cities,
flyovers
right?
and shit. Well, a lot of states like fell, and that's why we have so many moth attacks, but they were originally localized in one part of the world, which gave other people time to prepare. But if there's like an earthquake, right, these barriers can collapse and a city can get dusted very quickly.
Mothed terrorists blow a hole in the sky dome.
Right. And that means you have to scramble your fighters immediately, and they have to fly insane shifts of just like hours and hours and hours and hours, potentially even like days of air combat.
Yeah.
And we could throw in some shit to prevent just like missile batteries from ending the setting with like it fucks up like infrared targeting and shit like that.
No, I think there's
certainly
really no there's no
we can also just say no missiles
use.
exist. Like, we can also just be like, the only thing we have are jets and moth domes.
No, see, the thing with any missile technology you could use you could use infrared, you could use radar, you could use fly-by-wire stuff. You could like have it hand guided. I think fly-by-wire is really the only thing that you could actually use, because like these things are the infrared's not going to do anything because it's going to be so noisy out there. You're not going to be able to hit anything with it. And radar, do they even have physical bodies? Like
the moths? It's hard to tell. Certainly if you're in close proximity to one, you can't trust anything that you see on your radar screen. So it makes radar kind of ineffectual at actually determining where they are up close. But from long range, it could work.
What if the moth dust, like, it just acts like chaff, like a chaff grenade? Like, it just fucks it up.
Yeah, it scrambles electronics. I think that would be another way that it's dangerous to fight them. If you're flying directly through the tail of the dust, you can expect your craft to shit itself relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only people who can actually keep their crafts moving and like sheltered from this noise is people who are talented in this sort of psychic energy.
Right. And the moths, being smart too, they know how jets work. So moths in a fight, they can just like stop flapping their wings and like flap backwards even, which jets can't do. So even jet fighters are limited, and it's a tough fight when you think about it.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to get up in their fucking faces, basically. And even doing that is just very dangerous.
Yeah.
These crazy fucking dog fights.
They're shooting each other, it looks like, up there.
Oh my god.
And you can even throw in too, spicing it up a little bit, like conflict between states too. Like what's left over what resources are there.
Oh, I think that's integral to the setting. Yeah.
It's like the White House still hates the Kremlin, you know, just because the world got mothed didn't mean that went away.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and a whole region gets mothed, and you know you only have a few days to deal with it. So you bomb the shit out of it, right?
Holy shit!
Napalm, baby.
Yeah, and then the moths like are awakening during the offensive because you couldn't bomb everybody. And that's Vietnam. That's when Vietnam happens.
I love the smell of napalm and the moth.
But the actual horrifying war is like on the ground. You know, being someone whose job it is to like suss out double agents and find where the cocoons are. That'd be a pretty tough job as well.
I think you could go like really three really interesting angles. You could either go with the air forces that are like trying to fight these things like in the sky on their own terms, where they're strongest. You've got people going and like trying to root out like infestations before they hatch. And then you've got like the sort of political social side where you're trying to figure out who's been compromised in the government and also, you know, against other nations. So, which, yeah, I think we're about at time, honestly.
Yeah. No, I like.
If we go any further in this, I don't know where else to go. I mean, I'm all mothed up at this point.
Let me tell you what I already know. All right, I'm not mothed. But the rest of you, I don't know.
What's your favorite Toast of London episode, Walter?
Oh, you know, it's got to be the Masonic episode. It's the best one.
That one's great, but the one that I think is right after it, Buried Alive.
That one's good too, where the director... Well, I won't spoil it.
But that deranged actor just like Steven, buy me a dog. Well, you better buy him a dog.
I'll shoot this dog and then shoot myself.
Only took Belvin 30 minutes.
That's one of my favorite gags in the show when he does it.
It only took Belvin 30 minutes to remember that he did watch that show.
Such a great show. No moths.
There's no moths in the United Kingdom.
There's no toast in this setting, actually. I did. Toast isn't a thing.
Crucial detail. I'm glad you got that.
Just run right under.
Bread cannot be heated in this setting. Just bounces off of any temperature change. Which has a whole lot of other implications that we just don't have time to get into.
Yeah, butter implications. Did you say butter implications? Well, folks, that's our show.
No, but I might as well have.
No, if you like this episode, you can subscribe to us on your podcasting service of choice to get new episodes every other Saturday. And if you're feeling like a neat old boy, you can go ahead and... Nope. Let me try that again. And if you're feeling really saucy, go ahead and write us a 5-star review. That's right. Lie about our show's quality. And share us with all your world-building friends. It really does help us out. Our art is courtesy of the talented and wonderful Shell Tor at Jovial Paradox on Twitter. And you can tweet at us.
We love her.
She's fantastic. She's incredible.
Oh, she's so great. She's so great. Such a pleasure to work with.
We have a contract with her where she's actually indebted to us. She has to make...
Yeah, she has to, in spite of the fact that she's a lawyer with a law degree, she has to actually make art for a podcast that averages 100 listeners.
Well, don't sign contracts at a crossroad. That's what I say.
Yeah, definitely don't.
Don't you do it.
Fucking do that.
And you can tweet at us too at LoreLads or send us hate mail at 30minuteworlds@gmail.com.
Side anecdote before we close out. I was looking at our analytics the other day, and I noticed that someone from Spain had listened to like all 11 episodes in a single day.
Wow.
Which I surmise is just one person.
Ay, Dios
so if
mío.
you're out there, if you're out there, we love you. Whoever you are.
Yeah, email us and we'll buy you some zapatos.
Yeah, no, send us an email and we'll send you some shit.
Shine on, you Castilian bastard.
You take a siesta now.
Are we sure they're
because you've
Castilian?
earned
Or
it, bro.
could be from Catalonia.
Yeah, let's not bring that up.
Sorry.
Maybe they're sensitive about that. Let's not.
All right.
Not the time or place.
Thanks for listening, especially the one Spanish person. And as always, happy world building.